Przemek, you ready?
Yeah, I think we can start officially now. It's 5 past, so let's start.
Yeah, so officially, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our monthly ScrumTale webinar. I'm Lech Wypychowski, and together with me, I have Przemek Witka, and we are the authors of ScrumTale. ScrumTale is a Scrum simulation game. Our baby, our child, that we created together about 2 years ago, back when we worked together at Intel. And this is something that was developed organically. We started experimenting with this idea of collaborative story writing at that time, and this whole project developed for we experimented for about 1.5 years before we released it in the shape that you can see right now. So the idea for this webinar is to answer the most common answers that we get over emails and on social media, and also to give you some space to better understand what ScrumTale is and to ask any questions that you might have to ScrumTale authors. So without further ado, we're going to be asking some questions, and I'll be asking questions to Przemek. Yeah.
And I will be asking the question to Lech, so yeah.
And feel free to jump right in, ask some clarifying questions, or if you want to deepen some questions, just go ahead, jump right in. So first one, let's start with this one. So Przemek, we all know Lego for Scrum, we know Get Kanban, Pizza Kanban, and other simulation games. So please tell us how ScrumTale is different. What's so special about ScrumTale?
Yeah, Lecho, what an interesting question. So thanks for that. So with pleasure, I can share with you. So first, for me, is a crime story as a product. It's make a huge difference because it has a lot of similarities to software product. You need to design, you need to code, you need to validate, you can pair program. So there is you have the same issues with the quality integration.
Code, Przemek. You said that you need to code. Do you really need to code in ScrumTale?
You need to write at least, but you need to produce. You need to produce your stuff. So so this is the same phase. It's also obvious. It's very easy to assess quality. If you, for example, build the Lego city, you can discuss if this green roof is better than the red roof. But here, when you read the story, you can easily say, okay, this is a nice story or bad story, or you can easily spot or grammar mistakes and stuff like that. So this is it, but it's also good for.
Yeah, you mentioned similarities to developing software. So we have a lot of similarities to some real life cases, challenges of software teams. But is it just for software teams?
No, it's also good for non-IT because everyone who go to school, who went to school, write something. So if you are creative, it's easy to jump in, and it is all connected with the second bullet, which I would like to mention, that it's also very engaging. So because it's very engaging when you start writing a story, there is a blood, sex, and stuff like that. You feel very engaged with the product, and you lose this this feeling that this is some artificial exercise during the workshop. You just jump into it fully, and you are very engaged for the whole workshop. It's very hard to stop people writing when we need to stop, for example, for retro. So, and at the end, people are proud of what they deliver. So they really feel connected with the product. apart from that, it is very fun, it is very creative, and it is also very extensible. So it's not a game per se. It's not about winning or losing. It's not about reaching some score. It's all about learning, and it's very easy to adapt this to your needs. You just take something at the beginning, and then you can add stuff from some elements. You can remove some elements and adjust it to your workshop goals. It's also very easy to facilitate, because as a facilitator, you just observe the group, you keep the frames, you keep the time boxes, and then you do the rest during the brief session. And what I also like, and I also find very interesting here, is that it's easy to link experience from the workshop with the real life work. So often when I did this workshop for my teams, they refer to some behaviors or some experience from the workshop to the real life. We have, for example, some kind of bonus card when we say, okay, you need to add some product placement with IKEA, and it simulates some unnecessary feature in the product. And later on, when the team gets some requirements which breaks the product consistency, they can say, oh, this is the next IKEA. So this is I believe the most important points which I would like to mention here, Lech. Are you satisfied with my answers?
Thanks, Przemek. This was a brilliant answer, really. You guys have any other questions that you'd like to add to clarify this one? If not, then I have another question.
Yol, I believe you have, but you are muted.
Yeah.
Yol, you are muted. You need to unmute yourself.
Oh, right. Many levels of mute. Sorry about that. So a quick question about the idea of sprint planning when writing a story. I'm having trouble with this. How do you plan a sprint when you're doing creative writing?
So how about we park this one when I'll be describing the elements of the game.
Okay.
And I'll note it, and we get back to the question later. Okay.
Sure. Thanks. Yep.
It's gonna be easier when I have some visual aid for this one.
Sure. Yeah, it just wasn't sure of the context for the whole thing. Thank you. Yep.
Okay. So the next one.
Do you have a next question for me, Lech?
Yes, actually I do. So Przemek, actually you probably don't know, but I'm a Scrum trainer myself. And I run my own Agile and Scrum Kanban workshops. And what can I use ScrumTale simulation game for?
Mm-hmm. Oh, very good question. You have second very good question, Lech. So let me answer that one. First, it could be, and the basic use case is just a Scrum training. So we as a trainers, Lech and me, use this as at the very beginning of the first day of our 2 days Scrum training. We just very briefly explain basic stuff and basic elements of Scrum, and then we very quickly jump into the simulation. So later on, it's much easier to refer to the real life examples and the feelings from the workshop. So this is the first use case. Second is I'm using it also for new teams kickoff, when the teams formulate and we need to it doesn't matter if we need to also introduce Scrum or we just build some new team which already work in Scrum. It's very good to integrate the team, to see the different individualities in the team, to see team dynamic and speed up the whole process. So it's second one. The third one is for product people, for product owners, product managers, to put a stress on those elements which are related to product management. And we have also some extensions like story mapping, personas, which also bring some product management elements. If you would like to also put a stress to quality, it's also good to address these problems in company, because you can really observe how quality is important from sprint to sprint to keep the quality high on from the very beginning, to put a lot of attention to integration. So it's also related to XP practices like pair programming. We also use this for management, as an introduction for management, because they can better understand what does it mean what does it mean Scrum and Agile in practice on the team level. Very often managers say after the workshop that they never thought that it takes a lot of so much effort to keep quality and integration in the product. So it's not only about writing some elements, but also to keep everything integrated. And also they can also observe how keeping the framework boundaries help the team to be very effective. So it's not about managing the people, but managing the system, to keeping the boundaries of the system. It's also good for non-IT industries. So it's so far from the IT land that it can be presented to this Agile HR or another non-software world. And last example, like I said, last time I had a workshop for teachers, so it could be also introduced in schools, but that's a kind of unusual use case.
For now,
that's all. Yeah.
Thanks, Przemek. Okay, so I have another one. As a ScrumTale facilitator, as a trainer, what benefits can I expect by using ScrumTale in my workshops?
Mm-hmm. Oh, next good question. Like, thank you. So first of all, we are the first users of ScrumTale, so we are not only selling ScrumTale, but we are very extensively use it. So that's why we are following drink your own champagne or dog fooding approach. So what we observe, very happy, engaged participants. Good feedback after each workshop gives us the feeling that we did a good job. I like deep, very meaningful discussion during the brief session. People really bring very interesting observations. So you are not teaching them, but they just share the experience, and we can just drill down and have a deeper discussion. What else? It's also good for someone who start to be a Scrum trainer, and it gives a solid base for the Scrum training. So you just add some elements to the ScrumTale, and you can have a very solid Scrum training from the beginning. And of course, it's also the benefits is more money. I can see that when we offer some Scrum trainings, when we add the information about the simulation and link to the web page, well, we get a lot of questions about that, and it's our also kind of selling point here.
If I can add to that, yeah, differentiating factors is a really important one. But what I love in running this workshop are those insights that workshop participants have. Like when you put a manager as a developer, and suddenly they, some managers shared this one time an observation that I was like a typical developer. I was so focused on my work, not looking at acceptance criteria, not looking at other people's work, how it fits to the rest of the product. I was just like a typical programmer. Or on the other hand, lots and lots good observations from the developers about how important the product vision is, well planned, aligned vision of the product, how much easier it is for them when they use a persona, for example. And this kind of observations that I know that they are transferring to their teams after the workshop. So that's I really like also running this workshop, because you can also use your own style. You can be more like coaching and letting the team to fail, and then go back to it on the debrief and just discuss it. You can be more demanding as a facilitator. You can walk hand by hand with them, or you can step back and just observe the team dynamics. Also for experienced team, what Przemek mentioned, also it's a great opportunity for some internal conflicts to pop out. And many times we have situations for the teams that they work on a daily basis with each other, that suddenly you can see that there's some tension between some team members, and ScrumTale is it's just a game, so it's easier for people to discuss it, to get to the root of the problem and solve it. When in their work environment, it would be much more difficult to talk about those issues. So to me, this is really a really fun workshop to run for the facilitator as well.
I can also add that it is also opportunity for individuals to grow. Often after the workshop, they just realize that they have skills and they have position in the team. So they can leverage their position or find a new place in the team. So it also reveals some hidden talents in the team. Do you have any questions to that part before I ask the question to Lech this time?
Oh no.
Yeah.
Well, I had to look away for a minute, so my apologies if you had to answer this. I had a quick question about in corporate settings. People will sometimes say things like this are just way too abstract. How does this connect to our real work? Which, the connection seems obvious from the outside, right? But some developers can be very concrete about the world. Do you find that? How do you handle it?
Sure. So I think I never heard running this particular workshop that it's too way far from my daily tasks. When I don't know if you know Get Kanban, for example. I also like this game, and I run dozens of those workshops. But to me, this is good for mechanics, but on the other hand, to use it to grow the team, to develop, to improve in running Kanban, it's just too far from regular setup. And in ScrumTale, on the other hand, the problems that the team will face during writing the story will be so close to their regular problems at work that they can easily link them. It's it's I think the most important aspect of this game, that you really can reflect those things, those daily challenges in the game, especially around communication, especially when you have two teams writing two stories in parallel, and those two teams need to write stories that will be somehow aligned. We can talk about it later in a moment when I'll be showing the game elements. But I be honest, I never heard words like in other simulation games, like, yeah, that's nice, that was cool, I had fun, but what can I do with this now when I go back to my team?
Sure. I guess I was thinking the upfront process. We're thinking about bringing this to you. Oh, you
how
want
to sell the
take some
idea
time and
just
write
to
a story? How does that have anything to do with what we do?
Okay. I thought that she meant something different. So yes, at the beginning.
I can answer the question.
Go ahead.
We just share what we are just discussing now with the team members, that what they possibly will learn, how they they can possibly take out from this, that around this silly stupid writing story is something which is really important in their job, and it's enough for most cases.
Okay, great, that's fine.
Sometimes there's some people have some problems with, I can't write, but they quickly forget about it. They can't write, and the theme that we use during the game includes some, murder. There's a victim, there's crime, there's a murder weapon, and there's a romance included. So people quickly get engaged and forget that they can't write.
Okay, all right, thank you.
But the fact is that it really the creativity is a very necessary thing here. So the biggest risk running this workshop is when in the group the whole group says we are not writers, we have no skills to write stories, and we have run lots of workshops, but I have one or two which goes not really well because of that, because people are it was hard for people to write stuff, and they cannot refer them to the product. So
I think it's the problem with the workshop that you mentioned was slightly different. It was not their native tongue.
Also this.
They were writing in English with
limited English skills. Yeah,
that was the blocker. So that's why we are now releasing a German version that is currently in review, actually, to address this issue.
Okay.
Sorry, Stephanie?
Thank you.
I heard.
Just said, yoo-hoo.
Yoo-hoo. It was very short, yoo-hoo. Okay, so I have now a question for you, Lech. So we talk very generally about ScrumTale benefits and blah, blah, blah. So now it's the time, show me the game. Show me what's inside the box, what is in the online version.
Okay, my pleasure, Przemek. I would love to show it to you, but I can't because you are the host and you don't allow me to share my screen. So
I can make you.
Unfortunately, I can't answer this question.
I can make you host.
Okay. So this is our website, scrumtale.com, and here you can see these pretty pictures of our game. So in the box, unfortunately, we don't have the picture of the box, but box is super nice as well. We have two large foldable game boards that are actually Scrum boards. You have columns for product backlog, sprint backlog, in progress, ready, and done. And for into team setup, so one box.
I will stop you a little bit, Lech, because for me, when I asking the question, it was much more important to give me a quick overview of the dynamics of this game, how it's configured, about the teams, about the tails, and
Okay, so
sorry for that.
okay, no problem, Shannon. So the game is one box of the game can serve from 5 to 17 people. So one facilitator can have 17 up to 17 people on the workshop. It works best when you have 2 Scrum teams. Then you have 2 separate teams who are writing 2 separate stories. As a team, using Scrum framework, they'll be writing a detective story. And you can think about the story as a James Bond series where you have separate cases, separate murderers, separate different victims, but they are linked by the same character, which is the main hero of our book series, and this is the detective character. So detective character will have different cases to solve in the two tales. The teams will be writing story in Google Doc or Office 365 or other shared document, and they will be using user stories provided with the game that are kind of requirements or are briefly describing what should be in the game. So like in this example, history of detective describe what made him or her become the detective. It must be a traumatic childhood event that made him or her pursue this career. So you have 22 user stories like this that represent 22 different plots in the tale that needs to be described in the story. Teams will also get a draft of the story, and both stories will have very similar structure, exactly the same structure, meaning that there'll be, first a phone call with a case for the detective, then visiting the crime scene, interviewing the witness, interrogating the suspect, solving the mystery, and so on, so on. There are a couple of plots. I won't now go through each and every of them, but it's the structure of we are providing user stories and giving the structure of the game, and then the teams will be using their creative minds and collaborate to figure out the missing parts and to add the body to this story. We will be also splitting roles, so each team will have a product owner and a scrum master, and role cards that provide more information about those roles. And there'll be also some events throughout the game that will lead the teams through different Scrum events and game events.
So to add to that, the whole simulation takes about 6 hours, including the lunch break and the brief. It's just the right time to have it not speed up too much. And referring to this two team concepts, it's also add some scaling elements, at least some communication. And the detective character was designed to simulate some component when when the two featured team must contribute to. They need to also align on coding style, so the same style of the two tales. So we can also have, you will also have this kind of elements in the simulation. And how many sprints it will take to reach the final demo?
Yeah, the teams will have altogether 3 sprints to write the story. Each sprint will start with a planning. There'll be 2 days of work. During the day, you'll have a daily stand-up. Then you have a sprint review or demo, where the teams will be presenting and reading it's an overall meeting where the teams select one person that will be reading out loud the whole story to the team. And customer or chief product owner, depending on the configuration, will accept or reject the stories and share the feedback.
Okay, so they have 3 sprints. So what's before these 3 sprints? How they came up to the vision of the product, of the Tales?
So I was planning to give you the example and jump to the online version, which includes our extension called ScrumTale. And using this example, I wanted to show you how are we building this structure and aligning on the product vision of this during the workshop. So maybe I'm gonna jump to the online version now. If there are no questions to the boxed version.
Yes. Maybe somehow a picture of the box or something? Or
Gonna see the
how
box?
does it look? Yeah, I would like to see the box like in real. Like.
Okay.
In the product, maybe.
There's a picture in our shop.
Oh, there I didn't click. Oh, fancy.
Yeah, so this is the foldable board. You get the stickies and some pens as well. You see in action user stories on the board and those nicely designed and crafted cards.
How long does one simulation take?
So to do it comfortably, you need about 6 hours.
Okay.
But this is 6 hours, including the lunch break and some small breaks, and the brief.
Okay, yeah. So I can start when the people don't know what Scrum is and they learn it while doing the simulation.
So how we usually, we do it in a couple configurations. If we have just one day, then we start with a short 15 minutes intro or ask the teams, we do some prep work, sending over emails like Agile Manifesto, Scrum Guide, or sharing some video, usually from Henrik Nyberg, this 15-minute introduction or overview of Scrum. And quite often we are also doing a 2-day workshop where we start with this simulation game. We do some quick warm-up exercise, not very well. If we have 2 days, then we start with a warm-up exercise, then we run the simulation. And on the day 2, we go deeper into mechanics of Scrum, to Agile and Scrum, to the principles, values, and so on. But we can reflect and go back to the experience from the previous day. It works great, especially when we have teams who are new to Scrum and Agile, and they have no experiences from the past. So this game gives them at least something to reflect on.
Okay.
And on our blog, you can find one article about the Scrum training with the Scrum simulation. So there are some hints how to facilitate one day with ScrumTale.
Oh, great, thanks.
Okay. Any other questions?
No, thank you. It's great.
Okay, so now what you see right now is a Miro board. It's a tool for virtual boards where the whole team can collaborate at the same time, and it works in browser. If somebody doesn't know Miro, then it's highly recommended by us. And this is our online edition of ScrumTale, and it basically covers all the elements that I just described a moment ago, plus a couple more things. Because we included two of our favorite extensions. One is we call ScrumTales, which is a theme for the game that helps the team to introduce some product management features, and the second is user story mapping. So ScrumTales is a team that provides a little bit more information about the background of the story, about main characters, and about the detective. So we get here with ScrumTales persona that represent target audience. It helps to replace some of the documentation about, and helps the team to align on the style of the story, because we know who are we writing for, so we know that we can use tech words or curse words or new technologies, because we know that it's a young person, and based on the details that are here, the teams know what they can write, or what should be the climate of the story. Then we are providing some information about the town where the stories are taking place. We are also introducing our main character, detective, and giving some information about her, character and what she likes, what is she like, and about her personal life, just to help the team to start up.
And when Lex said we introduce, is the customer introduce. So when during the online and during the workshop, you facilitator play also the role of customer, which is a manager or CEO of publishing company. So you just play a role of such kind of person who just talk to the group of ghostwriters, which are here to deliver the book, because our author was lost somewhere. So it happens from time to time, but we need to be ready for some trade show, and those ghostwriters are here because they wrote some well-known books like Harry Potter and blah blah blah. So you give some kind of introduction like this using this Arson's theme.
Right. ScrumTales also give a little bit of information about both stories, who was the victim, where it all happened, but the teams still need to be creative and fill in the missing parts and solve the mystery and align on some details. So we figured with our experiences from multiple workshops that this is the right amount of information that will help the team to get engaged, to start up, and to work efficiently. So there are links to Google Docs. And now, Joel, going back to your question regarding the planning. Now we are moving on to the second extension that we usually use during our workshop, which is user story mapping. So now one of the exercises before we actually jump right into to writing a story is to prioritize our user stories that you can see on the cards in here. So product owner will go through all the stories together with a team, read them, and and classify and put them in a proper column and proper row. So they need to build the MVP product out of those stories and decide which plots are absolutely necessary to build a complete story, which will have a beginning, body, and ending, which is solving the mystery. And there's some the backbone of the story in the columns, and the two releases, MVP and post MVP, because some of those stories are aimed to distract the team, then they are not crucial for the main story plot. They are distractions to teach the team that it's up to them to take the initiative and propose which stories should be in the story, which not necessarily. So this is one of the exercises before we jump into writing, and then the stories from MVP will be transferred to sprint backlog, and just using sprints. The teams will write the stories in Google Doc. Joel, does it answer your question?
Yes, thanks, Lech.
Asking you, Przemek, it was a question.
Oh,
from Joel.
I'm sorry.
That's great. Thank you very much. Yep.
Okay, very often we use those kind of funny names when we play in the customer's role. So I feel like a customer this time, and just I was Joe for a moment.
It's okay. I'll play customer too.
Oh,
You're very good at it.
sorry.
No, Joel is very good at playing customer.
Yeah, you can. Oh, yeah.
Okay, looking at the time, we have 15 minutes left. So before we go to the question part,
Way it's really it's cool that this Miro board gives you a really nice experience. Drag and drop those cards to the Scrum board, and looks like we have some issue here, Przemek, with the template that is not be hidden in the background. We're gonna fix it in the next release.
it's today version. Yeah, but yeah, we will fix that. It's not a issue. So what's the main difference like between classroom, classical box workshop and online workshop?
Yeah, so basically all the functionalities that are available in the boxed version in the classroom workshop, you can do online using Miro. Not the limitation, but the with online workshop, there is more complexity in running the workshop because of the tooling, and because of the tooling, you're gonna need 2 facilitators to run a workshop for 2 Scrum teams. So if you want to have more than one team during a workshop, then you should have a sidekick, a second facilitator that will help you when the teams will go into breakout rooms. Or maybe you can split yourself into 2 persons and go to 2 different breakout rooms on Zoom, but that's beyond our capabilities at this point. So first of all, you need 2 facilitators for large teams. You're gonna need Miro paid plan to import this template, which costs about $15 a month. And you need Zoom or Office or Microsoft Teams to run it. Apart from that, all the things that we designed this workshop for, this game for, it's all supported in the online version as well. So actually, even some of the Scrum trainers will be using this online version for classroom because in some countries now, these days, there are some limitations in passing on objects between workers at the office. So with the online version, everybody has their own laptop. So there are no elements to, that you need to pass on to the other people. However, those cards and everything is laminated, so you can use some alcohol to clean it, or after the workshop.
Okay, Lech, I think it's a good time for a question to leave us this 10 minutes for answering the questions. Maybe there is something missing in our long introduction.
Okay, I have one.
You go ahead.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I understand that we need to have 2 separate Zoom meetings, right? If we play with 2 teams.
No, in Zoom you have an option, breakout rooms. So you can create a set of breakout rooms, and you as a host can start the breakout rooms, assign people to those breakout rooms, and they can work in those breakout rooms in separation. And then you can close the breakout room and everyone pop up in the main session. So usually we create several. So two first breakout rooms are for the 2 teams, and the rest are free, and we make all participants co-hosts, so they can jump into the free breakout rooms and work in the small groups or in pairs. So it's very convenient, because without that it would be very hard to work in one team in subgroups. So
exactly, yeah. So, well, thank you. I would need to investigate these breakout groups because we are using Zoom, but I did not know about this option. And another one, the second question is if we may use, for instance, one of you as a facilitator to an online edition.
Can you start? What?
It is possible.
For instance, if I purchase this online edition, right, I am a Scrum Master and I can be facilitator and moderator for this game. However, I would need to, of course, spend some time to get to know all the instructions. But is it possible if, for instance, I can buy a service from you to play a facilitator in an online audition?
Yeah, it's possible.
Okay. And will I find the pricing on the website, or can you tell me now?
Just write to us and we will make a quote for you.
Okay, so this is like a non-standard.
No.
Okay. Okay.
Also, some of our trainers are using Microsoft Teams that, from what we heard, are offering similar functionality as Zoom, but we haven't tested it. We are using Zoom on our workshop, and it works really, really great. The quality and those breakout rooms have also a nice feature that is time boxing. So you set a time box for a meeting, and people get kicked out from the breakout room back into main session. So this also great, represents the Scrum event, that it's a certain time box.
Okay, great, thanks.
If I could add in, I mean, I've used Zoom a bunch. The breakout rooms are great. One of my clients is a bank, and they're using WebEx. They absolutely won't allow anything else. And so, I'll just say, while Zoom is awesome, the feature set of breakout rooms is really spectacular. It's a little more awkward, but you can do it with multiple WebExes, and you just have a page that has links, and people know to go to this room. You click on that link and you join that conference. I mean, it's not nearly as fluid, but I wouldn't want to have people think you can't do it any other way, if that helps.
To be honest, that would be really troublesome, meaning.
Oh, okay. I've done this in other kind of events, and I get that it doesn't. Well, okay. Feel free.
Yeah,
either way.
Yeah.
Here I agree with Lech that dynamic is so high that it's very hard to stop them writing. So, and the time boxes are short. So I love this option when I just can click, close the breakout rooms, and we have a counter which can down to totally. 0, and that's. But yeah, for sure it's possible. Yeah, but
I'm not disagreeing. But for instance, with this client, if I say that, I can't use it at all.
Yeah.
So I'd rather have something a little awkward than nothing.
Yeah.
So
But thanks.
probably I would then do, okay, maybe it's a separate
A side discussion, but yeah,
Mhm.
I tried attempting to be helpful. Sorry if that's not.
Yep. Thanks for that.
Yeah, so if you want to use Teams, you actually cannot do the countdown. So there's no breakout room feature. You could work with different calls, you could work with different channels, but you cannot have the countdown. You always need to make sure that the people actually really want to come back. So, but it's interesting. Yeah.
I'm not, yeah, like I said, I never used this feature. I heard that some of the trainers are using Microsoft because, you know, just in the corporations, it's more common probably to have Teams than Zoom. And they said it works. But I don't know, never used it. We need to invest.
Yeah, but don't spend the whole question and answer talking only about the conferencing tool. Do you have any other questions?
Yeah, I would have a question moving away from the tech part. Can you do stuff like magic estimations or poker planning? Can you teach this also with this methodology? So wondering, how do you have any idea of the complexity of the story, right?
Definitely, you could introduce planning poker. You can do it in both. Actually, some of the teams that I worked with, they decided to do it by themselves. And they just, in the classroom, there are those whiteboard markers included, and you can add just a number of story points in here, and just pen and put it in here. And they were using it for estimating how many stories they should put in the sprint. You can also, if you want to teach the teams planning poker or some other estimation techniques, then sure, no problem. You can introduce it. It's in our somewhere in our backlog to describe this this exercise, and as another example of extension of the game. In the online version, you can also do this cool functionality that you can add a comment. For example, write something in here, or put a note, and then it goes with the card. So you can tag somebody, assign people, add story points, or whatever.
And as we said before, it's a very extensible workshop, so you can do whatever you want, but you can just test it, think about extending some time boxes for some events. And in fact, we're looking for extension authors. So if you find some great way to teach as something else using ScrumTale, you can be an extension author. We can publish your extension on our webpage. And in fact, if it's rather agile tail than ScrumTale, so we are much more focused on the agile principles here and incremental product delivery quality than the Scrum framework per se. We just use this Scrum framework to
Our personal workshop, but of course it's up to you how you're going to use it and where you're going to put the stress on. Like, is it going to be to making sure that everybody is doing all the Scrum events correctly and the roles, or you focus more on the product? It's totally up to you as a facilitator how you're going to run it.
Okay, thank you.
I can see that we run out of time, so let's quickly.
Okay, maybe one last question. Somebody wanted to ask something?
Yeah, so what extensions are there already? You said that you have various extensions and you showed 2 of them. Do you have more?
Yeah,
No, now we have only those two extensions. So story
Actually,
mapping and
online version used to be an extension, and now it's going to be a standalone product. So it's not going to be an extension anymore. But we know that some of our trainers are using, for example, extension, changing about a little bit the flow and roles to do, for example, less training based on this game.
One of the things which we would like to see as an extension, but we hadn't time to provide that, those scaling methodology extensions. So, for example, to introduce some elements of Nexus or some elements of less to align with the with those framework roles, because we have a funny discussion with the guy from less works. So he said that we are not aligned with our concept of product owners and chief product owner with less. But in fact, we introduced two product owners because we are very focused on those team levels and looking at the short time boxes. It will be impossible for one product owner to work together simultaneously in two teams. So that's the reason. But yeah, we are open for other extensions. And one more thing, we are offering all our ScrumTale and into licenses. One is non-commercial, so you can use it for internal purposes, for free trainings or inside of your company. And we have two commercial licenses for trainers who offer some external commercial training. So, but the product is the same. So the only differ is in the licensing. But you can extend if you buy non-commercial license, and you can you test it, and later on you decide that you would like to upgrade to the commercial one. You will only pay a difference in the price. So it's.
So quick question before you wrap. So is there an online only pricing yet, or is that something you're still working on?
From yesterday, we published the only online version yesterday, because first we published in as a free MVP version,
right?
And we took time to try it out several times to a little bit modify facilitation. So the online version comes with the additional facilitator guide just for online version. So you just need to read the basic facilitator guide plus this extra guide for online version.
Okay, sounds good.
Is it the point of the game that the user stories are fixed, or does the team develop additional user stories throughout the game?
No, good question. First, you can add. So we said that if you would like to add some user story, you can just put a post-it and then just write down user story. But we have several questions about what if the team came up with their user stories somehow. So it's also a topic for another extension. So how to not bring those user stories up front, but develop together with team. But
yeah, and then just like in agile organization, we say it's not part of the POR, plan of record, and we won't be implementing this story. No, kidding, of course. Yeah, very often teams are participating in creating those stories and splitting them into smaller ones or modifying. They saying it doesn't make sense, that it doesn't fit to their story. So it's a great really way to teach them and encourage team to take ownership of the product as well, or to participate in creating the product.
Very often they modify the backlog without talking with customers, which is great for the brief.
Never seen it.
Never happened.
What are you talking about? That's crazy talk.
Yeah. So I think that even more common is that a developer on our team is so focused on writing their story that they don't care about, you know, they in the first sprint, in the first half of the first sprint, they finished all the acceptance, they covered all the acceptance criteria of the stories, but they keep on going. They keep on going, keep on adding, keep on writing, because they really, you know, it's like with developers when they have this cool feature that they're working on, it's already working, but they don't keep polishing, keep on, you know, refactoring the code for like 3 sprints instead of doing it in 3 days. So that's also, again, a great example of how this game, how you can use it to reflect on some real cases in your real life.
It's not only about one developer, it's a usual case after the first sprint that we have very unintegrated product and we have different parts totally not connected with each other.
Awesome.
I'm not now pasting the link to the chat, the Zoom chat with the this webinar survey. If you have a time, if you can spend a minute or two after the webinar to rate it, if it's something which brings you a value, and we will appreciate that.
Great. Well, thank you much. I'm going to have to jump for a meeting, but this has been great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So
Have a great evening.
So we can officially close. Have a great evening. Thank you for
participation.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
The same to you. Bye-bye.
Nice evening. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.